I hid because I thought that my Tourette's made me ugly.
When Baylen Dupree first opened her heart to the world through Baylen Out Loud, very few could have imagined just how deeply her story would resonate. At just 20 years old, she wasn't chasing fame, money, or attention. She was simply trying to live openly with a condition that most people misunderstood and many mocked. Born with Tourette's syndrome, Baylen had grown up battling not just the unpredictable tics and outbursts that came with her diagnosis, but also the harsh judgments of a society that too often failed to see beyond them. Yet instead of hiding, she chose to step into the spotlight, unfiltered, unashamed, and unafraid to show the raw reality of her daily struggles. Her TikTok series, Baylen Out Loud, quickly became more than just videos on a screen. It became a lifeline for Baylen and for millions of viewers who saw pieces of their own struggles reflected in her. With every clip she uploaded, Baylen's honesty disarmed people. She didn't sugarcoat her condition. She didn't edit out the embarrassing moments. Instead, she showed everything, from sudden tics interrupting her sentences to the exhaustion that came after a long day of trying to control what couldn't be controlled. Fans didn't just watch her, they felt her pain, her courage, and her determination to live fully despite it. And in doing so, they fell in love with her story. But behind the millions of views, likes, and supportive comments, Baylen was carrying a weight far heavier than her followers could ever know. Every day was a battlefield. Every night, a question of how much longer she could keep pushing forward. For her, Tourette's wasn't just a condition. It was a relentless companion, always threatening to steal the moments of peace and normalcy she craved. And as her fame grew, so did the pressure. Suddenly, the private battles she once faced quietly were now unfolding before an audience of strangers, some supportive, others cruel. Yet, through it all, Baylen kept sharing, because she knew that silence had never helped her. But honesty just might help someone else. As Baylen's videos spread across TikTok and other platforms, her life began to change in ways she could never have predicted. Overnight, the young woman who once felt invisible was suddenly the face of a global conversation about Tourette's syndrome. News outlets picked up her story, mental health advocates praised her bravery, and fans flooded her comments with gratitude for giving them a voice. For so many, Baylen wasn't just another influencer. She was proof that vulnerability could be powerful, that honesty could break barriers, and that even the most misunderstood conditions could be met with compassion when someone dared to tell the truth. But with fame came a spotlight that burned both ways. While millions rallied around her, others used her openness as a weapon against her. Strangers mocked her tics, cruel trolls made videos imitating her, and hateful comments poured in daily. For someone already living with the physical and emotional toll of Tourette's, the added sting of public ridicule was unbearable at times. Baylen often spoke about the heartbreak of opening her phone to see messages telling her she was a joke or unworthy. And yet, rather than retreat, she chose to confront the cruelty head-on, reminding her followers that her story was not about perfection, but about resilience. Still, the pressure was real. Behind the camera, Baylen faced days where the weight of her condition and the demands of her platform collided in painful ways. Episodes of intense tics left her physically exhausted, sometimes even injured. The isolation of dealing with a condition so misunderstood often made her feel alone, even in a room full of people. And though she had built a community of support online, she privately admitted that there were nights when the pain felt overwhelming, when she questioned if she had the strength to keep going. For her fans, seeing Baylen's tears and struggles wasn't weakness. It was what made her human. They cried with her. They defended her against hate, and they sent messages of encouragement that often reminded her why she had started sharing in the first place. But for Baylen, balancing her health, her mental well-being, and the expectations of millions wasn't easy. It was a constant battle between wanting to stay strong for others and needing to acknowledge her own vulnerability. And in those moments of breaking down on camera, Baylen unknowingly gave her followers the greatest gift of all, the reminder that even the strongest people hurt, and that it's okay to not always be okay. Behind Baylen's courage stood a family who carried her pain as their own. Long before she had millions of followers, it was her loved ones who watched her struggle through sleepless nights, hospital visits, and endless doctor appointments. Her parents remembered the early years when Tourette's first began to show, the confusion, the helplessness, and the frustration of not knowing how to make life easier for their daughter. They stood by her through it all, becoming her safe place in a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving. For Baylen, her family was more than just support. They were her anchor. Her mother especially became both caretaker and cheerleader, reminding her daily that her worth was not defined by her condition. Friends who truly understood her stuck by her side, offering laughter when days grew heavy and encouragement when she felt like giving up. And while much of the internet only saw her through their screens, those closest to her witnessed the full picture, the tears after a rough day, the frustration when her body wouldn't cooperate, and the exhaustion that came from fighting a battle no one else could see. But with that love also came sacrifices. Baylen often admitted that her condition shaped every aspect of her life, from friendships and school experiences to her dreams of a normal young adulthood. Simple outings became complicated, social interactions carried anxiety, and relationships sometimes fell apart under the weight of misunderstanding. Yet through every setback, she leaned on the people who believed in her, and it was their faith in her strength that gave her the courage to share her journey publicly, despite the risks. Her family's unwavering support also became a powerful part of her message. Fans saw not just Baylen's resilience, but the love that surrounded her. It was a reminder that no one battles alone, and that even in the darkest times, having people who truly care can be the difference between despair and hope. And while Baylen's story often centered on her own struggles, she never failed to credit those who stood beside her, her family, her friends, and the growing community of supporters who turned her pain into a movement of understanding and compassion. With each video, Baylen was not just telling her story, she was telling theirs too. The story of a young woman refusing to be defined by her condition, and the story of a family refusing to let her fight alone. As Baylen's following grew, something extraordinary began to happen. Her personal struggle was transforming into a global movement. What started as a few TikTok videos soon became an awareness campaign that reached far beyond social media. Teachers began using her clips in classrooms to explain Tourette's to students. Parents of children with the same condition wrote to her, saying that Baylen's bravery gave their kids the courage to embrace who they were. Even doctors and specialists pointed to her as a powerful example of how visibility could change the way the world viewed Tourette's. This was a turning point in Baylen's journey. She was no longer just the girl with Tourette's. She had become a symbol of resilience, of hope, and of acceptance. Invitations began to pour in. Podcasts, interviews, and collaborations with organizations focused on mental health and neurological disorders. Everywhere she went, Baylen carried the same message, that a condition does not define a person, and that compassion should always outweigh judgment. Her voice, raw and unpolished, carried more power than polished speeches ever could because it came from a place of lived truth. Yet even in these triumphant moments, the battle never left her. There were days when she collapsed from exhaustion, days when her tics became so severe that she couldn't record, and days when the pressure of being a role model felt like a burden too heavy to carry. But what made Baylen's story so powerful was not that she never broke. It was that she kept standing up, again and again, showing her followers that strength isn't about perfection, but persistence. Her impact on fans was undeniable. Young people from around the world shared how Baylen gave them courage to face their own struggles, whether it was living with disabilities, fighting anxiety, or dealing with bullying. They didn't just see her as a creator. They saw her as a friend, someone who understood pain but still chose to keep going. And in turn, Baylen often said it was this community that kept her alive on her hardest days. Through awareness campaigns and her platform, Baylen Dupree became a voice for the voiceless. Her heartbreaking journey was not just her own anymore. It was shared by millions who found healing in her honesty. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing had become clear: Baylen's story had already changed lives forever. As Baylen Dupree's journey unfolded before millions, it became clear that her story was never just about Tourette's, it was about humanity. It was about the courage to be real in a world that constantly pressures us to hide our flaws. It was about the power of one young woman's voice, breaking through layers of stigma, ignorance, and cruelty, to remind us all that we are so much more than the battles we face. For Baylen, every video was a choice to let the world in on her most vulnerable moments, knowing full well that not everyone would respond with kindness. And yet, she pressed record anyway. That bravery alone is what makes her story unforgettable. In her laughter, people found joy. In her tears, they found their own pain reflected. And in her refusal to give up, they found the strength to keep moving forward in their own lives. The heartbreaking truth is that Baylen's journey has been anything but easy. There were days when the weight of her condition nearly broke her spirit. Days when she wanted nothing more than to disappear from the judgment and the ridicule. But every time she rose again, she sent a message to her followers. You are not alone. That message carried across continents, into schools, into families, and into the hearts of people who had never felt seen before. For them, Baylen wasn't just a TikTok creator, she was a lifeline. Her fans often say they didn't just watch her videos, they felt them. They cried when she cried. They laughed when she found humor in her struggles, and they defended her fiercely when the world turned cruel. In Baylen's pain, they found connection. In her resilience, they found hope. And perhaps that is why her story left so many in tears. Because deep down, we all know what it feels like to fight silent battles, to crave understanding, and to long for acceptance. Baylen just had the courage to live that truth out loud, and so her legacy is not one of tragedy, but of triumph. The heartbreaking journey of Baylen Dupree will forever be remembered as proof that even the heaviest burdens can give birth to the most powerful voices. She showed the world that Tourette's is not a punchline, not a weakness, but a part of a full, vibrant, and deeply human life. And while her path continues with both struggles and victories, one thing is undeniable. Baylen Dupree has already changed the way the world sees not only Tourette's, but also the beauty of living authentically, for her fans, for her family, and for anyone who has ever felt broken. Baylen's story is a reminder that strength is not about being flawless. It is about standing tall in the storm, speaking your truth, and refusing to let the world silence you. And in that sense, Baylen Dupree's voice will echo for generations, long after the videos stop playing.